Disclaimer that this call is being recorded and we place our recording in our YouTube channel. And this call is attended not only by our Microsoft team members, but also our customers and partners. So with that, once again, happy Friday. Thanks for joining. And we are going to talk about a really exciting topic. It's the attribute-based, Azure Attribute-Based Access Control, or ABAC as it is called. So we're going to know about what it is and how it can help us manage access to Azure resources at scale. So that's the topic of discussion today. And folks, if really appreciate it, if you are not asking a question, if you can mute yourself, thank you. So what is, first of all, let's talk about for a minute role-based access control. Let's and see where this the need for ABAC and what that is comes into picture. So just understand that the components of a role-based access control, you have a security principal, which can be a user or a security group or a service principal or a managed identity. You have one of these as a security principal. Then you have a role definition that can be a built-in role like an owner, contributor, reader, or you can have a custom role like a virtual machine operator or some role that you have created in your organization. Okay. The third is scope, where you are applying this role. For example, remember, if you apply it at management scope, it applies to all the subscription all the way to the end. Apply it at a subscription level, it applies to subscription resource groups and all, and same way. So basically where you are applying this role. So that makes up the scope. And that's what give us this RBAC kind of a stamp. Okay, this is, so we are giving some individual or a group or a security principal or a managed identity certain role on a certain resource group. So that's what that's what it does. So with that, keeping in mind, role-based access control makes your life easy. I mean, you have a subscription, a lot of users, you have resource group, you can give individual access to a resource group, to a certain group, things like that. Makes things really simple and secure. So why we need ABAC? Why there is a need or for you know um, you know attribute-based access control. So first of all, keep in mind that you have only 2,000 role assignment in Azure. With attribute-based access control, which allows you, and we will learn more about it, allows you to give access to a security principal based on the attributes of the resource, of the security principal, of the environment. So that's very powerful. I mean, you can give granular access. You can go to maybe a blob level, or maybe a container level, or maybe assign access to certain set of blobs which have certain attributes. Things like that helps you reduce the number of role assignment, because otherwise you will have a lot of role assignment because you may have to spread these things out into different storage accounts and things like that. And that kind of makes things a lot simpler. And you can have attributes that can have business meaning. So you are, and it's dynamic in nature as well. So as you assign attributes to resources, that changes their access. So you see, I mean, that kind of makes this whole access very dynamic. So that's something, again, that kind of makes things a lot simpler and easier for you to take advantage of. Any questions? Okay, so let's move on. So what is attribute-based access control? It's the ability to give a security principal access to a resource or set of resources based on the attribute of the security principal, of the environment, or of the resource. And it can be any combination of those. And Azure ABAC refers to the implementation of Azure-based access control in, attribute-based access control in Azure. Okay. So moving forward, this is um, kind of a think of it that you have a storage account, a username Charlie, and there are two containers, and it has set of blobs in those containers. Okay, and the way you are assigning, you are creating a ABAC condition, and that's where you go in and make it more granular and more specific based on condition. You're saying my condition is that give Charlie a read-only access to blob where the attribute is project equal to Cascade. And by the way, you can just give it on the attribute name as well. That, okay, if the project attribute exists, then Charlie has access. Or you can say project equal to Cascade. I mean, and we will take a look at it once we go through the demo. Just bear with me for a few minutes. Okay, once we do that, so here is a blob that has project equal to Cascade, and wonderful. That's the access is given. The next one is project is equal to Skagi. That access is not given because the condition hasn't met. Same thing here. So that's kind of scenario. I mean, just think of it without using any kind of breaking down into different storage accounts or things like that. We are just giving attribute-based access control. Okay, and the attributes that you can use. By the way, this implementation is in public preview and currently available for Azure Storage. Okay, that's the service that is we are going to talk about today. So this is basically these are the attributes for condition in Azure Storage. Container name, you can pick the container name and do that. Blob path, and by the way, the tags that we are talking about, as you may know, that blob have metadata tags, and those tags are, called metadata on the blobs. But we are talking about specific tag. We are talking about blob index tags. This ABAC is driven based on that. It does not use metadata tags. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. Okay, it is driven through the blob index tags, keys and values. So you can use any one of them, and we will take a look at it once we get to the demo. So before we jump into the demo, any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so for these resources doesn't need to exist. So for example, if I have given it on storage account, but container doesn't exist right now, but if tomorrow there is a container created, it automatically assumes.
Yes, that is true. Yes, exactly. That's why it's dynamic. Yep. Okay, so let's move on. Good question. So let's say that we have so this is a blob storage account. I have these containers, and they have all different types of data in them. If you look at this account, I'm just going to focus on data docs. Um, you have different files, and let's take a look at these attributes. These files have one is CC is equal to 100, project Skyfall, then this one, and look at that. I'm not doing this metadata. You can assign that metadata as well, but this attribute-based access control is driven by this. And I have a file called file music, and this has a project music. Okay, so let's see how the experience look like of creating such an access control. So first of all, what you do is you go into access control, and you will see a new tab, a new menu entry, add role assignment preview. So that's where we go in and we assign the access. So first of all, let's go in there, and I'm sure you have seen we want to give a user, which is a fictitious user in my demo Active Directory called Brian Adams, access to all the files which have attribute project is equal to music. Okay, that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to accomplish. So here's what I will start with. I want to give storage blob data reader. So let's take a look at what are the roles actions. Generate a user delegation key, get blob container, list of blob container, that it can do. But look at that, there's a new checkbox or kind of a radio button, data action. What it can do? It can do read blob. So basically, these are the data actions that it can do. Okay, so with that, I'm going to select that role and do next. And then I'm going to, the next thing is, remember, role is selected. So very similar to RBAC. Now I'm going to select my security principal. In this case, I'm just going to use Brian Adams, who is a user in my demo Active Directory. I'm going to pick that. And the next thing is, I'm going to add conditions. Okay, you can do it visually, or if you're brave enough, you can do it with code as well, which is kind of looks like JSON, and we will take a look at it. It's very simple. So let's say select action. So what I'm doing is, for the select action, I'm saying read content from a blob with tag condition. So that's the condition I have selected. It's gonna ask me, okay, now build an expression. So basically, this condition action comes from the actions that I have selected in the beginning. Okay. Now comes, what is the source of attribute? It is the resource. And I will tell you there is another one, request, as well. We will take a look at it in our next demo. Okay. And the attribute name, I'm going to say blob index tags values in the key. Okay. What is the key? Project. Okay. Operator. Look at all these wonderful operators, string equals, string equal, ignore, case, all of that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to say string equals ignore case. Okay. And I'm going to say it should be music. Once it's music, give user read access to those blobs. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. Okay. So let me save this. Look, it has generated a very kind of the code of this expression. That's what's stored behind the scenes. So if you want to know more about it, learn about it, I mean, you can basically create those expression instead of doing the GUI. But for the demo, I'm just going to go with GUI. Next. So this is, it's showing us, look at, are you ready? You have the security principal, Brian Adams, and that's the condition, and that's you're assigning at the scope of a storage account. Okay, review and sign, and we have given access. Since we are doing this demo through the portal, I'm gonna give Brian Adams one more access, and that is the role of a reader on a storage account. Because the thing is, if we don't have that, we won't be able to see access it from the GUI, from the portal, once we sign in as Brian Adam. I hope you're getting my point. So basically, I'm just going to give him reader access as well. And just keep in mind, reader access to a storage account means you can look at the storage account. You cannot look at any blobs or anything. You can just, it's all read-only access. Cannot look inside what there is. You can see a list of blobs and things like that. That's all there is to it. You cannot look at the contents or cannot look at the keys as well. Okay, that is there. We save this information. So now let's sign in into our browser and anonymous browser, and we are gonna do portal.azure.com, and let me drag this demo user so I don't have to type it every time, the name. Okay, and let's type in the password. Okay, and the user is signed in. So let's go to the storage accounts. Okay, just keep in mind, RBAC takes a minute. And since it's a demo, it will take more time. So let's refresh the screen a few more times. Let's see if that storage account shows up. Okay, yeah, finally it showed up. So here is the storage account. We have signed in. We go into the containers and we see those containers. And let's say we go into index docs and I try to open this file 4. Clearly it says you don't have access, 403, access denied. Okay, so that's what we wanted. And let's go to the data docs and let's open the file music.jpg. Yes, I have access, though I cannot modify the keys. This is very important. I cannot modify the index keys, otherwise I can mess things up. But this is, as you can see, I have given access to this user at a very granular level using attribute-based access control. Okay, and it's very dynamic. So let's take a look at it here. So if I go in and if I go into these containers and I go into these, for example, this bicep demo.txt, and I change its attribute to project is equal to music and just save it. Now I can go back here. And by the way, now I am as, just keep in mind, just pay attention here. I am here as Brian Adams, signed in. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to refresh the screen. And then I'm going to go back into, yeah, this one. Let me open some other document. I can't access it. This one, I can. So just so think of it. I mean, I think somebody asked the question at the beginning, okay, the file doesn't exist. The attribute wasn't there before. I added it. So as I add those attributes, um, the access is dynamically assigned to users. I mean, think of it. There can be 2, 3 users, who have different attributes, and their access is changing as as the attributes being assigned or changed or removed from the files. No need to go in each time and give access to different storage accounts. Okay, everybody with me so far? Any questions? Okay, so let's quickly look at a few other examples of how this is being done. So let's go in and once again, let's go back to our storage account. And I have a few other examples that I would like to share. So we go back to the identity and access control and role assignments. Okay, I'm sure you have seen this screen many times if you're playing with Azure. Identity and access management. Look at that. You see, this is something new. For example, you have storage blob data owner, you have these, and you have view and edit. And this is basically the column is condition. This is something new. So for the owner, we have storage, which is basically storage blob data owner or storage blob data reader, which deal with the kind of more granular spec, the data actions. We have view and edit. So let's do a view and edit on basically James Bond. Okay. So this is our test user. That user can write blobs. Okay. And look at that. What we are saying, whenever you write blob, this is forcing. And look at the attribute source. This is basically, this condition is saying You cannot write a blob unless until the project value is equal to Spartan. Only way you can write a blob once the value is set. This is basically you're forcing. Let's say there's some things are writing data into the blobs. You want to make sure they write with appropriate blob values, or sorry, property values. That's where you can force it using this condition. So you're saying when James Bond writes this to this storage account, the blob should have this index key and attribute. Project key is project, value is Spartan. Okay, so this is the condition. So let's test this out as well. So let me just once again close it. Let me open it one more time and okay, and let me go in here and get this user. Once again, sign in. Yes, I have signed in as this user. As you can see, I'm signed in as fictitious user James Bond, and I can go into the storage accounts. And of course, I see that storage account, and let me upload a, um, you know, upload some document in this account. So I'm just going to go in here, and I am going to upload this file here. I'm going to upload, let me just go back here, sorry. Choose a specific file. Okay, I'm gonna upload this screenshot, okay? Fail, 403, condition doesn't match. That's interesting, how we do it. Okay, so let's do an upload again. This time, click on advanced and make sure you use Azure AD user account. And just keep in mind, sorry, I forgot to talk about one thing. This will only work if you use Azure AD based auth and disable the SaaS based authentication into your accounts. Okay. Otherwise, there is no use because anybody with a SaaS key can override. So that is a precondition. So you have to turn that on, and then this thing will work. So um, so, so I have just picked it up, and I have said project should be Spartan, and for the file, I'm going to pick something here, and that's it. I'm going to upload it. Wow, upload successful. I can look at it and project Spartan. So basically, just look at it. I mean, as soon as we assign the attribute, now we can force the write as well based on certain attributes there. Okay, so that's another thing. Another thing I want to show you. Let's say you want to make sure that a user can only um, deal with a particular folder or basically a container, what we call blob container, So as there are multiple blob containers, the user can only deal with one blob container. So for that example, let's go back here into our, we have 5 more minutes, so I think we should have enough time. We have a user called Black Panther, and once again, he can read, write, delete all type of things. And what we are saying is the container name is Wakanda Docs. So he can only, uh, deal with uh, those documents. So basically, that's what we are assigning access for. If the user is Black Panther, he can only deal with Wakanda docs. That's the only folder we are giving access to, none other. Okay, so let's go look at these data actions. These data actions are all there, but they're tied with this expression. And that's what makes this ABAC really powerful, that you have actions, but they're only applying to a certain folder. container, blob container. So let's close this thing out one more time, open a new private instance and go to portal.azure.com. And once again, I am not gonna try to type this whole thing. Okay, so I have MFA for this particular account, and verify. Yes, stay signed in. So that's the standard procedure. Okay, so now let's quickly go back into that directory and to that particular storage account, and let's try to upload uh, a file in this one. Okay, so we go in here and we say upload something, and we are just gonna pick a file from our documents. Yeah, it's failed to upload. Basically, it's not going to work because it doesn't have access. And let's try in the container Wakanda docs, and let's try to upload there. Okay, just keep in mind, so, this is working. So Black Panther has access to this folder, and that's what they're doing. Here, you can add more conditions. And if I add another condition, look what happened. Um, as I add a condition or add an expression, it's going to ask me, do you want to do an and or? Okay, so basically you can tie up expressions and put them in a chain. So you can have multiple conditions and things like that. So you can chain them together. So make it more complex. I mean, we're just showing some simple examples, but you can make it more complex. So that's what I would wanted to show. I mean, this is in public preview so far for Azure Storage blobs, and please take a look at it and uh, explore it, provide feedback. Any questions? We have one more minute. Okay,
Yeah.
folks. Yeah, go ahead.
I had one question. It's there in chat, but it's basically, would this work on Data Lake Gen 2, and how does it fare against, we have ACL control on folders and files?
Yeah, that's a very good question. No, it does not work right now with ACL. They are different. So that is strictly that is not there for that hierarchical architecture that is there with Data Gen 2. So no, not that. And by the way, I have shared some links in the presentation, and I will upload the slide deck. You can take a look at it to see what are some of the limitation or where the gaps are.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, yes, I have a question, and I would like to know is was added the attribute for filter, for example, in Microsoft Graph to filter for the role that have the attribute of base access control. I don't know, is to find, for example, the user that have this attribute in using Microsoft Graph, for example.
Yeah, I'm not sure. To be honest, I don't know the answer of your question. I'm not sure if there's a way to determine if a user, like for example, here Black Panther has some sort of ABAC, access to resources. Yeah, I don't know. I think you should be, because if you get the conditions, you should be able to do it, but I'm not sure if it's possible. So sorry, man. I don't.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know the answer.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Any other question, folks? Okay, so thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend, and hope to see everybody next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch. Stay safe, folks.
Great session, Avi. Thank you.